And we are live. I should learn how to announce live videos. That would be probably easier for people to join. But I want to talk to you today about the strange things. Why do people believe weird things? And the conspiracies. Are Jehovah's Witnesses conspiracy theorists? I wonder what you think about it. And I notice also a lot of Ex-JWs fall into conspiracies very easily. Why is that happening? Well, let's discuss this. All right, all right. Now, if somebody wants to join me, I would love to hear from you guys. The phone number is at the very bottom, so please call. Oh boy, I can't take calls. My phone died. That's very unfortunate. But what you can do is I'm gonna put in the comment a link, and if you click on that link, you can join me. You don't have to show your face if you don't want to, but I would love to hear some of your opinions. Now, conspiracies. This is actually a very interesting subject, and I want to talk about it because in Fear to Freedom, we're talking about things that people are afraid to talk about. Why? Because of the reaction. People are scared of the reaction of others. They're like, what if I say this? How are they going to react? What are they going to think of me if I say X, Y, and Z? And I wanted to break free from that. I'm like, you know what? I might disagree with you. You might have your own opinion. I think when we get rid of the fear and we say what we mean and why we believe certain things, that leaves us not only vulnerable, but at the same time, a place to grow, because it almost gives a permission to for the other person to be authentic, and they'll tell you, okay, this is what you believe, fine. This is what I believe, and this is why I believe it. And if you express it in a non-threatening way, what I mean by this is you express, this is what I believe, and this is why I believe it. I'm curious about what is it that you believe it, what convinces you that what you believe is true. And that doesn't mean you have to accept it, and obviously it doesn't mean that you have to agree with it, but don't cut people off. I see this was a challenge for a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, to accept the fact that we could disagree and still be friends. Because when we were Jehovah's Witnesses, you had to accept everything. You couldn't possibly say, I agree with everything that they're teaching, except the birthdays. I'm just going to do birthdays because there's simply nothing in the Bible clearly about the birthdays. So I'm going to celebrate birthdays. No, you couldn't. You couldn't possibly have your own opinion about birthdays or majority of things. The only place where they allowed people to think and make their own decisions was blood fractions. That's the only thing they said. We're not going to make a decision. This is up to you, up to your conscience. So a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses would say, no, everything's up to you, and it's all your choice. It's all your conscience. But Jehovah's Witnesses are actually right in their own book. Says this is a conscious matter. This is not a conscious matter. The major blood components, it's not a conscious matter, but blood fractions is a conscious matter. So they make the distinctions. What about conspiracies? Well, I believe Jehovah's Witnesses are the ultimate conspiracy theorists because they came up with this theory that they are the chosen people, that God chose them and everybody else is doomed, that they're all lying to us and we are the only one that have the truth. We're in the truth. And if you're in the truth, automatically everybody else is in the lie. If somebody agrees with us, great. They're also in the truth. However, if they disagree with us, automatically is wrong. That is a huge shift in the mindset when you think about it, when you're like, you know what, I have to find a better way of realizing what is real, what is not. Because if I don't, I become a victim of a very similar group. Where do the conspiracies come from? Well, the challenge with conspiracies is that there is truth in conspiracy. In pretty much every single one of them, there is something there that is real. Just like Jehovah's Witnesses, they will teach certain things that I still agree with. They'll tell people there is no hell. Guess what? I don't believe in hell. I agree with them 100% on this point. Right? They're saying God didn't create a place for eternal torture for all the poor souls that didn't accept Jesus or didn't believe in Jehovah or anything like this. I agree with them 100%. Majority of the Christians and Muslims would not agree with this. However, I do. So they will teach certain things to the other Christians mostly, and they'll say, "Hey, look, in this scripture, it says that soul that it's sinning, it itself will die." I believe Ezekiel 18:4, if I'm not mistaken. And they will point to certain scriptures, and the person is like, "Oh, I never knew this. This is incredible." In Proverbs, it says, when you're alive, you know what that you're living, but the dead are conscious of nothing at all. Well, if that is true, if it's in the Bible, black and white, then everybody else is lying. And they will cherry pick certain data to back up their beliefs. And then the person would see this as like, wow, I found the truth. And that causes people to switch their beliefs, obviously. That causes people to question what is it that they believe in, and they switch. They see certain evidence, and they're like, yep, this is the authority. Bible is the authority. Then they accept the channel of communication with God as the governing body, and then boom, it just goes from there. And then they go deeper and deeper and deeper. They themselves admitted that they went too far. Yes, they admitted, hey, you know what? With the speculations of things, we went too far. And then they started talking about the types and antitypes. And like, you know what? If the Bible doesn't really say that this has a double fulfillment or this means this, then we're not really saying this. Well, go try to figure it out when it comes to 1914. But there was a lot of things they actually backed from, because they said, you know what? We went too far. And if you open the book like Book of Revelation, which they don't want to quote at all anymore, it is full of nothing but conspiracy. It's crazy. I mean, like the whole thing in the world was all evolving and revolving around Jehovah's Witnesses. World War I happened because of Jehovah's Witnesses. World War II happened because of Jehovah's Witnesses. Like everything was just because Satan wanted to destroy Jehovah's Witnesses. It's crazy talk, absolutely crazy. But they believed it. They believed it. And then what happens? You start feeling special. You start feeling special because you know something the whole world doesn't know. We know exactly where we come from. We know exactly where we are. We know exactly where we're going. And we know something nobody else knows. We know the future. We know where the governments are going. And it's all conspiracy, because we know that the United Nations, they're all going to unite all the governments together against Jehovah's Witnesses. And one day they will sit by the table somewhere in United Nations trying to figure it out and attack to get rid of Jehovah's Witnesses. And then at that moment, Jesus will come with his army and 144,000 and slaughter everybody except Jehovah's Witnesses. This is the craziest theory you can possibly imagine. Because why? Because everybody who believes in this and who is planning to go to heaven, who believes they're part of the 144,000, is going door to door, basically preaching this: join my religion or I'm coming back to kill you. That is their message. They're not going to say it out loud, but that's what they teach. Everybody else who believes they're going to be rewarded in paradise on earth, they basically go door to door teaching, join the religion I'm in, or a friend of mine will come here and kill you. But we're not forcing anyone. It's your choice. God gave you a free will, but if you follow that free will, he'll kill you. Yeah, weird. So now, a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses wake up from this and they're like, this is all crazy talk. And they're looking for the world outside. They're trying to understand it. And guess what? A very large number of them fall for teachings that I consider extremely weird. And I don't want to say that people are not intelligent, that they're stupid or anything like this. No, absolutely not. I think our mind has very strong biases, and we're vulnerable. We really are, especially because we left this belief system where you were not allowed to think for yourself. You always had to have somebody else guiding you. And then when you wake up, you're like, oh, you know what? If these people lie to me, then maybe everybody's lying. Maybe the government is lying. Maybe the media is lying. Maybe the pharmaceutical companies are lying. Maybe everybody's lying. And they're just becoming so skeptical that they have a hard time trusting others, especially if they have a position of authority, because the highest position of authority was the governing body. And they realized these people simply lied to me. I can't put it in any other way. They misled me. They were saying things that I believe to be true, and then it turned out that it's not. And now I don't trust nobody. I don't trust anybody. I only trust myself. The truth is, if you say that you don't trust anybody, what you're truly saying is that you do not have a strong enough capacity or skills to recognize who to trust and who not to trust. I'll repeat it again. If you say, I don't trust anybody, it means you don't trust your own abilities to recognize who is trustworthy. Think about it. And this is where it becomes a huge challenge. Because when you're joining another group, whatever it is, as an ex-Jehovah's Witness, you're going to be skeptical right away. Or the opposite, you're just going to believe everything they say because that's how you were trained. That is the regular pattern of your thinking. It's like, okay, here's an authority figure, somebody who knows better than me. Who am I to question this? They know better. It sounds better. Emotionally, it feels better. They love bombing me. They must care about me. And people accept this. I myself became a victim of conspiracies, I have to admit. There was a time in 2018 where the financial system, as we know it, almost collapsed. It almost collapsed due to greed and what the banks have done. It almost bankrupted the entire world. That's how bad it was. And when I saw this, I started digging. It was 2008, big crash. And those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, watch the movie Big Short. It's actually very accurate of what took place. And the Big Short basically shows how people in the top positions in the government, in the banks, they believed in the system so much that they were blinded by the fact that it could not hold. So they believed that the real estate market in America will always go up. It will never go down. It'll never crash. And they leverage their money like crazy. Every bank leverages their money. The moment you go deposit money in a bank, you give them $1, they're going to lend 10. Legally. It's true. Go and find out. You give them $1, they're going to take that dollar, put it in their books, and they're going to give that dollar to 10 different people. In the form of a mortgage. That's how money is created, by debt, by a promise. That's how the more promises of repayment that we have, the more money we have in the system. We used to back that money by gold and silver and other things, but today it's all backed by a contract, a piece of paper that says, I will pay you back in the future. And that's how the money really is created right now. But if it's all promised based on the fact that the value will hold. And the moment the value goes down, we're in trouble. The banks are in trouble. The governments are in trouble. Everybody's in trouble. So when the whole thing burst, the bubble burst, the whole world basically was in trouble because everybody was buying those mortgages that were basically garbage, right? The huge leverage. And I grew up in Poland. And in 1989, communism collapsed. And when the communism collapsed, massive money printing was happening. And when printing of money is happening, guess what happens? Inflation like crazy. We had like 520% inflation. You think what? 6-7% inflation is bad? Try 500. Okay, it's a hyperinflation. You go to the store the next day and everything doubles. You go the next day and then it doubles. You go the next day and doubles again. It's just crazy. Okay, you can't keep up with the prices. People were changing prices in the store daily, sometimes hourly. It was insane. The moment you get the money out of your employer, you go and you change the currency to another currency, because at the end of the day, this currency will not be worth as much as it was in the morning. This is insane. And I believed back then that the whole thing will happen worldwide because of the enormous amount of money printing was happening in the United States. So I'm like, you just need to protect yourself from this, and you just got to buy gold and silver and protect yourself from the huge inflation and hyperinflation that will happen worldwide, and all the fiat currencies will go like a balloon, and just with one pin gone. And the conspiracies started going deeper and deeper and deeper. As I was educating myself on it, I'm like, you know what? This will happen for sure. Just like it happened in Poland, and just like it happened in Weimar, in Germany, just like it happened in Yugoslavia, it happened in many, many countries where they were just printing money, and they're adding and adding zeros, and everybody becomes millionaires. Just the money is not worth anything. This will happen to American dollar. I was convinced because of the money printing. But I didn't know the whole truth, did I? Because the money printing that it's happening in the United States, it's totally different than money printing in any other country. Because in America, money printing is not happening like everywhere else, because American dollar is the world reserve currency, and they can print unlimited amount of money without creating inflation, because they call it debt. That's all what they have to do. Put it in their books, and they say, this is a debt that we're going to pay back later. And that's it. And it's not causing inflation. Enormous amount of money can be put into the circulation. As long as people spend it and the circulation is happening, the inflation will be low. So there was obviously pieces of information that I was missing, but I was so convinced, because of the pattern that I saw, that this whole government is just simply lying to us, that they're just telling us one thing, but they're doing another, that I started going down the rabbit hole. It didn't stop at this. You went to the September 11 conspiracy. Then you went to a whole bunch of different government issues that they were doing. And I believed it. I followed that rabbit hole quite deep. And I said, I can't trust nobody. I can't trust the media. I can't trust the government. I can't trust the people who are in high positions. They're big fat liars. Right? They're all just one thing they're saying, and they're not another. And I guess what? Inflation was happening, but it wasn't happening as much. But I wasn't the only one who believed it. So things like gold and silver started going up in price, higher and higher and higher. I also learned how to purchase not only gold and silver, but I learned how to purchase leverage accounts, options. I'll tell you one thing about options. If you buy certain stocks as an option and you guess the direction, you can become very wealthy in a very short period of time. So I did. I invested in gold and silver on options. And oh boy, I was happy every day. I would wake up and I would see thousands of dollars more in my account, more and more. And it would double like every few days, within weeks, from like, I don't know, $10,000. I mean, like $100,000. It was crazy amounts. And I'm like, yes, I'm the king of investors. And at that point, I was so happy that I took the money that I made and I showed it to all my friends, showed it to all my family. Like, look, this is what I have done. This is what the government is doing. This is what is going to happen. They're not telling you this. They don't want you to know this, But this is what's going to happen if you invest, if you protect your money with gold and silver, and I show you how to make it on the leverage accounts. You could be as rich as whatever you want. Like the more you invest, the more rich you're going to become. And this is the money transfer that's going to happen from, for very few people, and majority of the middle class going to get wiped out. The rich become richer, the poor will become poorer. Like all the stuff I believe. And guess what? People believed me. They believed me, and they're like, oh, you know what, Jack, you know all this stuff. They gave me their money. They gave me their life savings. Like, you go invest. And I did. And guess what? The bubble burst. And one thing that you have to learn when you're investing with options is if the directions are going the opposites to what you believe in, it can go down to zero. And I took that account from 10,000 to like close to 100,000, and then down to $17. Yeah, that was a big lesson. Why? Because I believed the conspiracies, and the government was telling me something else, and I didn't believe the government. I didn't believe the media. They were all saying it's a bubble and it's gonna burst, and I'm like, no. I know better than them. I have some secret information, and they're all lying to us. They're all just telling us what we want to hear to tickle our ears and all that crap. And I paid a very high price for it. Not only I lost all my money, I lost the money of my friends and family. I was so embarrassed. Couldn't sleep. It made me sick to my stomach. But I still believed them. And I'm like, I sign up for like secret rooms, right, where we could discuss these issues with other investors, and they're all without exception still saying, oh, the government did it on purpose. And I'm like, are you kidding me? It was tough. I'm not saying the government is all beautiful and they're all always saying the truth and the media are never lying. No. That's not what I'm saying. But I became a victim of believing people who were completely not qualified to even make those opinions. What they were saying made sense to me. What they were saying, it looked real. It sounded true. And especially because I remembered same experience in Poland. What happened? The pattern of behavior, it seemed like it made sense. And I paid a really high price for it. And that moment was very valuable, to be honest with you. I didn't want that moment to go to waste, because I'm like, okay, there is a lesson in this. And I want to know how to evaluate data in order not to pay that high price again. I needed to learn how to determine what is real, what is not, because very easily somebody else can come up with a whole bunch of YouTube videos, and I was just watching one after another, right? And just trying to figure it out how deep the rabbit hole goes. And I believed it. And then later on, I'm like, who are these people? Who are these people who very craftily edit other information, and they're making things look a certain way, but I don't look at the whole picture. And if you just cherry pick data, you can create any theory you want. And that is the problem. You cherry pick data. Because every conspiracy there is, and I've read a whole bunch of them, there is some truth to it. It's not all lies, it's not made up, but it's a pattern of behavior and a pattern of thinking. When they say, this is A, this is B, this is C, and it's all true. And they have proof for it, and they have documents for it, and they have historical evidence. And you're looking at like, yes, and there is a story at it. There's a myth to it. It's not a lie, it's a myth. There's somebody's perception. Somebody's like, this is what I think it's gonna happen. And they're creating a timeline, and they're creating like, this is what's gonna happen, A, B, C, and this is their plan. And you're gonna see this happening. We're already seeing this happening. This is an agenda that the government has, and they'll create this path, and people believe it because they see the pattern, and our brain follows patterns. It follows patterns, and I followed that pattern because I believed it. And then it was like, whoa, it was scary. And the same people who told me that the whole world will collapse and our money will be nothing and the government will get rid of American dollar and they'll create a new worldwide currency and all that crap that they were saying. After few years, they switched to, oh, the end of the world is going to happen in 1912 because Mayan calendar is going to end. And it was all about how the government is digging holes in underground. They know the end of the world's going to happen and the new world's going to happen and this and that's going to happen. And I'm like, holy crap, why the hell I believe these people? Who are these people? Who put them out there? Of course, the 2012 came and went. They even made a movie, right, about it, 2012. How the whole world's going to end. And of course, the year came and went. And nothing happened. And the new conspiracy happened. And the new conspiracy happened. And now they're growing like crazy. You would think that people would learn. But it was similar like Jehovah's Witness, who would constantly predict the end of the world. They would predict, yeah, we're going to all go to heaven in rapture 1914. We're all flying to Jesus to see him on the cloud. When it didn't happen, you would think they would start thinking. They don't. They just move the date to the next day, right? To the next year. Or 2 or 3 years from now, and it doesn't happen. Then they move it again, and they say, "Oh no, we misunderstood, and now we're gonna have this Beth Sarim, and then we're gonna build a house for princes, and we're gonna have Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, and they're gonna live in this house, and they're gonna take us through Armageddon." And they did it. They cheated it. They dumped their money and they built this house, and then Rutherford turned it into his cottage. It's still there in San Diego. You would think that after 1925, people would wake up and say, this whole thing is a scam. I mean, the guy took our money, took our work and created his own cottage. And yet, they still blindly followed him. It's crazy. And they're not stupid people. I can't say they're stupid people. A lot of them are intelligent. They're lawyers and doctors and architects and engineers, and they have education, and they still follow that man. Incredible. Jehovah's Witnesses, same thing. And it's 1975, and then there's, in the 20th century, the end will come in the 20th century, then the 20th century comes and goes, and they still believe it. Now is the overlapping generation, and they still believe it. And it's like, if you change that overlapping generation and the prophecy of the generation 5, 10 more times, they will still believe it. Why people believe strange things, even if the evidence are pointing out directly that it's not true, even if they come up with dates and it's not true. You've seen so many on the radio, on TV. The weirdest were around COVID. The agenda first was Agenda 2020. Then I heard about Agenda 2022. Then I heard about Agenda 2023. Now is Agenda 2030. It's like the whole time, like, they created what the government is going to do to us, and then half of the world's population is going to die because of the vaccines, and they all want to control our mind, that we won't be able to think, and we won't be able to go buy and sell things in the stores unless you have this vaccine passport and whatever. And they thought this gonna be forever, for life, and the whole World Health Organization is gonna control the world, and people won't have any more freedom and do anything. 2 years later, no more pandemic, no more passports, every border opened, and guess what? They'll never admit that they were wrong. They'll never admit it. They'll just switch to another conspiracy, and they'll say, oh, there's another agenda coming. Now the war is happening. They just switch to another subject. It's weird. It's weird. Even in black and white, they see the evidence, and they can't think that they could be wrong. There's something within us that really wants us to be right. And even when we see the evidence opposing to what we believe in, we will not accept it. Like, we're looking for, no. This is what they, and you hear a lot of they with no names and no specific person, unless it's Bill Gates, that's for sure. they want you to think this way. And the moment you put it to the test, they usually go weird. And I recommend this book, Why People Believe Strange Things. And another one is Believing Brain. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant book. I strongly recommend for anyone to read this, because it shows how we have biases, how we construct our beliefs, why we're convinced that some things are real even though they're not. And it's easy to judge other people because they grew up in other religion and they believe something weird and strange, but we're right. We all believe we're right. If we believed that we were wrong, we would change our mind, but we believe we're right. This is why science is trying to eliminate error. When they come to a certain conclusion, they do testing. And when they do testing, they don't want one lab to work on it. They want several, minimum 3, and usually it's at least 5 or more. And those labs, they don't talk to each other. And they're doing tests. And they're comparing, before, let's say, medicine is put out there, they're comparing those tests one to another. And they say, okay, this is what we tested. We have 1,000 volunteers. This lab had 1,000 volunteers. This lab had 1,000 volunteers. They bring all this to the table, and together, okay, out of 10,000 people, how many people had the side effects? How many people were giving the placebo pill? How many people had good results? How many people had no results whatsoever? And they're looking at the statistic, and then they come to the conclusion whether we should go forward or not. Our mind is not really prepared to think scientifically or to think statistically. We go buy a car, okay? And we like specific model. We like specific color. We like the way it looks. We go into the dealer and we're on the bus. And while we're on the bus, we hear 2 people talking about the exact car we want to buy. And they say, that car is a piece of crap. It's a complete junk. I bought that car and that car just gave me nothing but trouble. The transmission went down. And then, the brakes were not braking properly. And then the electrical system was not this. And then they just crashed the car. And then we're like, we hear one example. We hear one story, and we could automatically change our mind. But the truth is, every car out there, every manufacturer will produce a lemon, right? There is a car that will not work properly, even brand new. Trust me, I experienced it on my own skin. It's possible. So what's better in order to protect yourself? Always try to look if there's any statistics that will help you to come with a better understanding, with a better conclusion. So if you want to buy a specific car, go and see the testing. Go compare that car with other cars. Go compare that theory people have. Okay, which is the safest car? And then check the statistics, because the statistics will help you to make a better decision. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges when people take exceptions to the rule, and they will turn it into something really, really big. This is why we're replacing the politicians so often. You wonder why? I'll tell you why. A politician is a person that has to make decisions that will be, it's supposed to be for the greater good of a country. So let's say they have to pass a specific law, and the law, that the moment they sign the paper, they know that there will be people who will be hurt by it. Inevitably, there will always be people who will benefit from that law. There will be people who will not be affected at all. And there will be people who will be hurt by that law. 100%. You can pass a law of wearing seatbelts when you're driving a car, thinking statistically you have greater chances of survival. It will help people. It will save lives. But there is a small margin of people who will actually be hurt by it. There will be a person who will have an accident and the seatbelt will jam and the person will be burned alive in that car because of the seatbelt. There will be a mother who's pregnant and will lose a baby because of that seatbelt. There will be people who will be hurt because of that law. It's inevitable. But your job as a politician is to figure it out how to pass that law so it serves the most amount of people and it harms the least amount of people. But every law you pass, I guarantee you, somebody will be harmed. Now, the people who benefited from this policy or this law, they're usually happy. They're not saying anything. Okay, good. Lower taxes, or I got better benefits, or even if I pay the taxes, they build a highway or the subway or whatever, and you don't notice. You just go about your life. People who are not affected, of course, they're not going to say anything because they're not affected. But there are people who got hurt, and they're going to get loud. And the moment they get loud, they will convince the rest of the people how bad of a politician you are because of this policy and how their life is now worse because of what you have done. And people believe it. People hear this, even though maybe a small percentage got hurt and majority of the people benefit from it. It doesn't matter. This small amount of people that get so loud, they will convince the rest that this government needs to be changed and we need a new guy. And it happens every single time. This is why politicians know this. They will never talk about what am I going to do when I'm going to become a president and I'm going to fix this and this and this and this. Very rarely. All what they focus on is how bad the guy who is in charge is. How many people are suffering because of this guy. They know bad news sells good. And the worse the news gets, the better it sells. Nobody wants to talk about beautiful weather. Everybody wants to talk about a storm. If you go and a salesperson or anybody will perform at a proper level and you're happy with the service, chances are you're not going to share it. If you're ecstatic about the service, you're going to share it with 3 people. But if somebody screws you over, you're going to share it on an average with 17. Think about it for a second. And this is the problem with conspiracies. We see people who got hurt, maybe even a small percentage, and they take this data and they over-exaggerate it, and they're saying the whole world is going to be like this. This is what they want to do to all of us. And they bring these examples. And unfortunately, many people follow this, and this is what we see. A simple post on social media can grow into millions and hundreds of millions of people who will see this, and they're like, this is how it is. And less we trust people who are in power, and more we're trusting people who have no qualifications to express certain things because their knowledge is very skewed. And I actually like what Obama said one time, which surprised me. He said that before he was in office, he had an opinion about something about national security. And when he became a president, he had an intel, he had access to information that was obviously confidential because you don't want your enemies to know this. You can't put this publicly. And when he found out all this information, he changed his mind. So before he was a president, his mind was set. And this is right and this is wrong. When I become a president, I'm going to change this. He took an office and he's like, ooh, there's a whole bunch of things I didn't know. And now that I have a full picture, I changed my mind. And even though he was fighting against it, and before he took the office, he said, this is what I'm going to change. He didn't change it because he didn't know the full picture. And unfortunately, we don't have a full picture, especially if you are in a position of authority as a president or prime minister. You're going to have a group of people who will advise you, and they'll say, this is what will happen if you make this policy reality. This is what's going to happen if this will go through. And you know you will make this guy happy and you will make this guy unhappy, no matter what you do. We actually did this experiment in the class. I remember there was a time when we had surplus in a Canadian budget, and they had to determine what to do with the surplus of money. And the key people made a presentation of what we can do with the money. We should put it into hospitals. We should put it into universities. We should put it into our pay off our debt. We should put it into a research. We should put it into I don't know, foreign exchange things. And like everybody had a different idea what to do with that money, and we had to listen to every presenter. And we, before the government made the decision, we as people in the class had to decide what to do with the money. And it was incredible because as everybody's making the presentations, whoever was making the presentation, believe me, they were like the best there is in the country to make the presentation. So if I listen to this guy, right, I'm like, yep, we should put the money in universities because that is our future. We have to invest in the future. And the next person says, no, listen, we have problems with hospitals. There's a lot of stuff that is so backlogged. You know, we have more urgent things that we need to take care of. So we got to put the money in the hospital. So I'm like, okay, sure, let's put it in the hospitals. And the next person says, hey, we got debt. We got to pay off that debt. If we don't pay off that debt, then soon we're going to run out of money for universities and for the hospitals. We got to put it. So I'm like, okay, we're paying off our debt. Whoever made the presentation, they literally convinced me that that's where we got to put the money in. And at the end, 6 or 7 presentations later, I was so confused. I'm like, I have no idea what to do because no matter what I decide, somebody will cry about it. If I decide I'm going to put the money here, this guy is going to be on my ass saying, you've made a really bad decision by putting the money here. Now these people are dying and people are sick and you cut this program and so on. And I'm like, because we all had to be pretending to be the governor and make a decision. It was very eye-opening. And I'm glad that my teacher did this because he taught me a huge lesson that no matter what decision you're going to make, there will be people who will criticize you and there will be people who will be hurt. And this is the decisions that you have to live with. The higher you go, it's incredible. And if you're running your own company, believe me, there will be time you're going to have to fire people, knowing that maybe that person that you're firing, maybe is a single mother with children, and you have to fire them. You have no choice. If you don't fire them, your company is going to go down. And if your company goes down, then everybody goes down. So you have to fire certain people, no matter how much of a damage that will bring to them. It's incredible. It's not easy. But when it comes to, let's go back to the topic. When it comes to the conspiracies, I'm actually glad that it happened to me in 2008. And I can't say that I'm happy that I lost all that money, but I'm happy that it happened when I was younger because it taught me a huge lesson and it helped me to obviously protect my finances a lot better right now. And it also helped me to learn how to think and who to trust. I don't fully trust the government and I don't fully trust the media either because I know they've been wrong many, many times. But I no longer swallow everything that I see on Facebook just because it makes sense, because they will edit things in such a way that they will cause you to believe something, okay? And without you seeing the full picture, you could very easily be persuaded into believing something that it doesn't make sense. Even here in Canada, we had this commercial for a conservative party. And they would say, oh, Justin Trudeau said, and I quote, I don't care about the budget. I care about Canadian families. I care more about Canadian families, something like this. And I'm listening to this, and then the Conservative Party says, he does not care about the budget, and blah, blah, blah. They're just bad-mouthing him right, left, and center. And I'm like, what he said made sense. You want to care about people more than about the money. Right? If he cared more about the money than about the people, that would be a wrong thing to do. And a week later, exactly the same commercial, word for word, and they're quoting Justin Trudeau, and they're saying, and they're playing the clip saying, "I don't care about the budget," and they cut it off. They cut off the rest of the sentence because they wanted people to see that Justin Trudeau does not care about the budget. He's just going to spend the money right, left, and center. But they cut off the piece that actually showed that he cares about people. Very crafty way of persuading people into believing that the other guy is evil, so people will now vote for you. It's a lot more effective than by showing, hey, listen, this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to do it, and this is my plan, and this is what I'm going to create. That actually doesn't work as well as showing how this guy is bad and how his policing is wrong and how many people are hurt because of it. That works much more effectively. And Jehovah's Witnesses very similar. The whole world is wrong. The whole world sits in the power of the wicked one. The whole world sits in the Satan's system. And if everybody is wrong and we're the only one that are right, guess where you're gonna go? Curious about yourself. Please, if you guys have any questions or if you want to post something, please do. Or you can join me. I'm going to post the link again in the comments. You don't have to show your face if you don't want to. It could just be sound. But I'm curious about you and how you felt about it. And did you become a victim of certain belief systems or conspiracies that later on you realize, oh boy, I can't believe I believe this, but you just don't want to know about it anymore. So often I saw, and I've seen it with my own friends and family that would send me, especially during COVID, there was so many conspiracies. They said, oh, here's an agenda. And then they would like one after another. Look, this is what they've done. This is what they've done. This is what they've done. This is what they're going to do. This is what they're going to do. This is what they're going to do with dates. Exactly. I actually regret I didn't save it because all those predictions turned to be false. All of them. Without exception. And instead of people realizing, hey, we've been wrong, they just switched to another conspiracy. And don't get me wrong, not every conspiracy is the same. And there are some who have more truth and some who have less truth. So, for example, there was a moment where pharmaceutical company made a mistake. They knew they made a mistake, but it would cost too much money to take that drug out of the shelves. They came up with a replacement. They basically wanted to cover it up, knowing very well that some people would be hurt. Some people, doing a recall would be more expensive than dealing with the lawsuits. That's basically the bottom line. They're looking at what it will call, how much money we will spend on lawsuits, how much money we're going to spend on recall. If the recall is more expensive than the lawsuits, they will go for the lawsuits. They won't tell the public. It's true. It happens all the time. It happens with car companies. It happens with a whole bunch of other companies. It's not a conspiracy. It happened more than once because of a budget. What are you going to do? You're going to bankrupt the whole company or you're going to cover it up? You got a choice. You're going to make those really tough choices, knowing that some people will get hurt if you don't make those tough decisions. But you got to make those decisions. It's very tough. Now, there are obvious conspiracies where people are saying, oh, there are aliens among us, and there are already classified. I've heard people saying, oh, there's 163 different species of aliens that live among us, and they're all in the government, and they're ruling us, and they have super weird things, super weird beliefs. They think that the whole earth is hollow, and there are people living inside the earth in paradise conditions. They think that there are aliens living inside the moon, and the people that think that the earth is flat, and a whole bunch of different weird things. And they have some sort of evidence. I remember I was looking into this flat earth because I thought it was a joke. But more and more people started believing it, including some of the people that I knew. and I know. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna look into it. And then the more I look into it, I'm like, what's wrong with you people? I thought it's gonna be a phase, but it didn't go away. It's still happening until today. Somebody joined. Let me see if the person, Civil Secretary 1510. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, awesome. Okay, good. Because I'm losing my voice slowly.
I'm using my Reddit name.
Cool. So, well, let me ask you, why did you join? What do you have to share?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't really have anything to share. Just enjoy listening to you,
Thank you.
and enjoy these conversations, of course. I've been in PIMO for many decades, in my 40s. I have a family, children. Everybody is very devout. And, we hear these various terms, PIMO, POMO. There's a new one that's coming about called PIMA, which is physically and mentally apathetic. And these are folks that they don't care about truth. They care about their community, and they know that there are issues. I don't know if you've heard this term before, but it's a very new one. And my wife is one of them.
My wife
And we
was.
have these. Yes, I've watched a lot of your videos with yourself and other people, and I really appreciate your forthrightness. It really hits home, honestly. And my wife is a Pima. She sees the issues, and she's been a victim of CSA. Um, but as many conversations we have, there are some times where I feel like I'm getting through, and there are some times where I'm hitting a wall. And I feel like there are people like myself who need the truth about the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are people that the community. And that is my wife and other members of my family. It's like they don't want to hear um, the issues that I'm concerned with, the issues that kind of drive me away,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And this, and it just doesn't make sense to me. But they don't care, and you are in a situation where you love these people,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't want to lose these people. So you try to find a middle ground and pick your battles, right?
Yeah.
Um, there are folks that I see on Reddit, and they they it just it they are overwhelmed and flooded with all the information. I was like, okay, they learned about 607 BC, 587, and all the architecture, and then they learned about the pyramids. And just they overwhelm themselves. They won't tell everybody about it because it overwhelmed them.
Yeah.
They've got this emotional response, right? And there are folks who are just not ready for it. And I don't know that my family will be at any point. And I'm in it for the long haul. If it takes 10 years, if it takes 20 years, it takes the rest of my life, I will continue to be who I am and plant the seeds, um, when I
Yeah.
can. So,
I think it's more important to live authentically and be accepted than to win that argument. Because I remember myself, I was not winning. No matter what I said, he turned against me. My marriage was not getting better; it was getting worse, and I had to sit down and think: what if she never wakes up? Can I accept her as a witness? Do I want to live for the rest of my life with a Jehovah's Witness? And I
my answer to that is yes,
well, and it was
because
mine the
I
same
love
thing. I realized, you know what? If I cannot accept somebody else with different beliefs, why would they accept me?
Exactly.
Right. So I'm like, I have to give her, right, that benefit of a doubt that she has the right to believe whatever she wants to believe. And I have a choice. Do I love her for who she is, or do I love her because of she is a witness? You know what I mean? I think that was a huge problem for Jehovah's Witnesses, because a lot of them married a witness because they were witnesses. So they look at, okay, if this guy is a ministerial servant, he's a pioneer, he's a good witness, therefore I'm going to marry him because that's a good marriage partner. And if that was
but there's the other side of the coin. There's the other side of the coin where you are raised a witness, and you spend time, a decade with growing witness friends, and your network as a witness is only with other witnesses.
Yeah.
And the pool is very small. And if you don't get married soon, you are potentially either a Bethelite, pioneer for life, and unmarried, or you get married young. And that's what I'm seeing a lot. That's what happened to me. We got married young. I feel very lucky with who I happened to end up with, because I couldn't imagine being with anyone else.
Right.
We have our flaws. And as a teenager, we did all the bad things. And a lot of my teenage friends did all the bad things, and we didn't talk about it. And there was one rule that we had amongst ourselves was, don't tell me something I need to report. I don't know if anybody else had that same rule, but it was like, don't tell me something that I'm going to have some guilty conscience because I'm supposed to report you on. We didn't talk about it. But then there were some of my friends, we just didn't care. And we did, like I said, we did all the bad things. And I am fortunate that I ended up with someone so special, the best mother to my children that I have. I'm so proud of her and what she finished college last year. That is another big thing. There was a lot of pushback from her family, from her friends, but she finished it. And then after she finished it, all that went away. It's like when you're going to college, there's all kinds of pushback. When you want to go into college, there's all kinds of pushback. But once you finish, well, you are valuable now. Do you want to do the first aid at assemblies and stuff like that? So just, oh my God.
Yeah,
it's so frustrating. And then day to day, I'm like, it's
100%. I just spoke with
laugh at it, right?
I spoke with another guy who went to university, and for his choice to go to university, he was just a black sheep in the congregation the entire time and couldn't get any privileges, obviously, and they were just showing like, don't follow his example all the time. And then when he finished, the moment he finished, somebody from Bethel came asking, can you go to Bethel and then teach the Bethelites your skills and stuff like that, right? And he looked at them, he's like,
yes.
How dare you even ask me for this? It's like, absolutely no. And the guy was like, shocked. I think it was a circle of his here. He's like, why not? Right? Jehovah's assignment. He's like, do you have any idea what I went through to get this education? And the congregation has been condemning me from day one. And now that I have it, I'm going to teach you. You guys going to benefit from it, even though you were condemning me? Not a chance. He couldn't even believe it.
And they don't hear themselves.
100% right.
No.
You know what I mean? It's like, listen, I remember when an elder came up to me in the congregation. He had a piece of paper that looked like this. Okay, a scrap piece of paper with written down a list with pencil. Okay, a list of all the trades and all the people that the Watchtower is looking for: doctors, nurses, engineers, lawyers, architects, you name it, everybody with higher education. the list. And I'm looking at this, and he gave me the list, and I'm like, that's not from the Watchtower. That's not an official letter. And he's like, no, it's not official. I'm like, where'd you get it from? Oh, from the Circuit of Vizier. So the Circuit of Vizier gave you this list like this on a piece of paper written with pencil. He's like, well, yeah, we don't want the congregation to know, right? Because it would encourage people to go to the universities, but we that's not what we focus on. I'm like, that's they forgot to write, we are the hypocrites on that list.
Well, what hits me the most is my wife went into nursing, and she learned about not the letter. It wasn't a letter. It was a conversation that happened between I don't know if it's the COs or the HLC, but the fact that nurses are not supposed to administer blood. And we've had multiple discussions about this. And I told her, I said, unless you have a document in your hand that says that as a Jehovah's Witness, you cannot administer blood, it is not rule, because you cannot point to anything. If a situation came down to the fact where someone had lost their life because you did not administer blood, what could you point to? And she totally agrees. She's asked so many people about getting this letter. She can't get it. And at this point, she's been administering blood. And she told me, because there's just no reason not to. If it's not in the Watchtower, it's not rule. If it's not in the public, we're not going to follow it. You're not going to tell me not to do something and not put it on paper, right, especially when it impacts people's livelihoods and people's lives. So I was super proud of her about that. But as much progress as we've made together, she's still committed to going to meetings and taking the kids and encouraging baptism and things of that nature. And her reasoning is there's a framework for morality, and I get it. And this goes across all kinds of religions, that if you are raised a certain way, it's like, okay, you don't do these things because you need to be a good person, and if you don't do these things, you are a bad person. That's a framework. That's a mental framework.
Yeah. And
I think she's locking in on that and hoping that our kids will adopt. My oldest, I've got multiple kids. My oldest is baptized, but none of the others are. And my middle child is at 16, and she has no plans to get baptized. And my wife is not pushing it, thank God. And my younger kids, I am not pushing it at all.
It sounds
because
weird.
it's just,
thank God he doesn't want to get baptized.
It's a death sentence from a friend standpoint.
Oh no, I get it. I totally get it. Totally get it. But here's the thing: how do you teach your kids? I'm wondering. Do they go to the meetings?
They do. They well, it's funny because the past few months, my wife has not been attending any, and my off and on. I take that back. Let me roll that back, because that's not honest. She's attended a few, and she attended it because she has friends there, and the kids, my children, they have friends there, and these are not bad kids, and from my standpoint, I think there are two groups. I think there's the corporate version of Watchtower, and then I think there's the people, and the people are not bad. The people are just, whatever reason they became a witness, whether they were born into it or they were witnessed to and had some challenges of their own and felt like this was the answer to theirs. These are decent people, and the kids there, they are decent people too. I don't see anything wrong with my children having fun and making friends with the witnesses. What I have a problem with is them only being friends with just the witnesses. And my kiddos are not like that. They go to school, they will continue to go to school, they will finish school, but they also have friends at school. And my wife and I have come to the decision that it's okay for them to have sleepovers and go on events and do extracurricular. I can't say that word, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
Events after school related to school, like robotics and dance and stuff like that. We're all for that. And we want our children to go to college and have a better life.
Wonderful.
Because we were sold a bill of goods. This world was not supposed to be going until now. We should have been in paradise by now. I should have been raising pandas with my grandmother, who I love very much. Resurrected my grandfather, herding giraffes, all this different type of thing. That didn't happen. And I think a lot of people are realizing that the end should have come. It's not here. Okay. What's my future look like? I think a lot of people are thinking about what their future looks like. And we're seeing a lot of apathy. And that's why I'm coining the phrase PIMO. Physically and mentally apathetic. They're just kind of towing the line, but doing their own thing.
Yeah. I remember I had to ask myself, what's more important, for me to be right or for me to be in love? What's more important, for me to be right or for my wife to be happy? And
is it more important to be right or be divorced?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
They're gonna play the card spiritual danger. I've read all the books. I've read everything. A brother said one time, raise your hand if you've read everything that Watchtower's put out. It was on Zoom, and I had my camera off, but my hand was raised because everything that comes out, I read it.
Oh yeah.
I dig through it. And my wife, she says, you're just looking for the bad things. I'm like, no, I am looking for the good things, and they're just not there.
It's hard to find the good things. Oh boy.
It is. It really is. I mean, thank you, Brother Let, for letting me wear my beard. Thank you for the governing body update that released this week. And I don't know if anybody else noticed, but they are now showing brothers with beards.
Oh yeah.
And people were texting me the day that came out. It's like, oh my God, you've got to see the governing body update about beards. My dad, who has been an elder forever and is also quote unquote anointed, was texting me that day. We do not have a good relationship. And I told him, I feel sorry for those brothers. I feel sorry for those brothers that have been towing the line for this long and now feel like they have been granted the privilege to wear a beard. And I hate the word wear a beard. And he told me, he's like, don't think of them like that. You need to think of them as spiritual soldiers. Like, right. You know what? That makes a lot of sense because soldiers take orders.
Yep.
Yep.
You're not there to think, you're there to follow orders, and that's it. Somebody else does the thinking.
That's what they're doing. They take orders, someone comes in and has some CSA issue. Let's call the branch and see what we need to do. Oh, are you in a mandatory reporting state? Well, if you're not, let's do something else. But if you are, go to a payphone and make a phone call. It's so frustrating. And, I wish that I could bring all of my family out of this, but I can't. And I'm living a life where it's a double life. It's this double life that they talked about since I was a young child.
How long has it been?
The double life that I thought about was, oh, you're doing something amazingly bad. You're committing fornication, all this stuff. No, that's not what's going on. I have my own thoughts and wishes about where I need to be, and I can't express those without the risk of losing my family. And it's so hard.
How long has it been
to do? And I know I'm not the only one.
No, you're not. That's for sure. You're not the only one. No. How long you
Please repeat.
How long you've been out mentally?
That's a good question, and I've asked myself that for a long time, and I want to say that I've never been in mentally, even as a child. I got baptized at 12 because my friends were getting baptized, and I thought it was the right thing to do. And I got baptized, and leading up to the baptism, I thought, once I got baptized, I'm going to feel like a different person. And then I did get baptized, and I felt exactly the same as I did before. And after that, I tried so hard to be a good JW. I was never an MS. I was never a ministerial servant. I made a very emphatic effort to become one several years ago. And I was in a congregation where I felt like I had some good friends as elders and the pioneers. And on Sundays, we'd get together. Saturdays, we'd get together. During the week, we'd get together and just have all kinds of fun and stuff. It was a good time. But it was such a struggle for me, even though that I was very good at giving talks and public speaking. Okay, that sounds not great. I was told that I was good at giving talks and public speaking. And the CO came around a couple times, and even though I was recommended to be an MS, I was not appointed. And with this CO, I felt me and him spent some time together and even connected over emails and stuff. Me and him have very similar struggles. And I think he did me a service by not allowing me to be appointed. He's not a CO anymore. But I remember him coming to the hall and he would be in the back room just kind of leaning on the wall like he was about to have a panic attack if he wasn't having one. And that is the same way I felt before every talk. And nobody else saw that. And I think because, I saw that, I walked up to him, I talked to him a little bit about it. I felt like me and him had a connection. And maybe because of that, I wasn't appointed. I don't know. But whatever the case, I'm glad I wasn't. Maybe it wasn't any of that. Maybe I'm just projecting. But I'm glad I was never appointed, because one thing for me was having responsibilities at the hall allowed me to check out. So I ran mics, I ran sound, I did stage, stuff like that. It allowed me to just kind of focus on kind of what I needed to do rather than what was going on. Because I had real challenges with just being in a crowd of people. There's a lot of us that aren't comfortable in social situations, and I'm one of those folks. I have a real challenge with that. And there's just not accommodations or room for that as being a JW. You're like, you got to get over it. You got to figure it out, right? And I've been trying to figure out my entire life. And at this point, I'm like, I don't care anymore. I really don't, because I've learned all these things. And that's a long answer to the original question. It's like, when did I become a PIMO? I don't know, but I feel like I was born one. And I was born one and living this in my entire life and just trying to manage it.
I think that's my theory on this, that you become a PIMO the moment you acknowledge to yourself that your answer about whatever doctrine is better than the answer the governing body is giving you. And the moment you allow yourself to admit this, that, yeah, I know better than them, is the moment the awakening happens. Do you remember a moment like that?
That's fair. I honestly, I don't. I feel like for me, it was a very progressive situation. But I will tell you, it was probably it was before COVID, but it was near COVID when I started that's the word, embracing my understanding and reading the Bible and encouraging my wife, like, just read the Bible as a child. Don't read it with any of the references. Read it as it's being told to you. Let it just sink in. Let it talk to you. And once I started doing that, oh my God, I've read it so many times, and I talked to my coworkers about this, and this could be counted as witnessing. But I have people that report to me, but it's a very casual situation where we have an hour each day where it's kind of a water cooler, but we're working on things that related to work, and we talk about whatever, and no holds barred. We talk about religious stuff, and there are folks that are religious. There are folks that are atheists. There are folks that are agnostic, and we just have these wonderful civil conversations where we acknowledge each other's standpoint, mine and theirs, and it's just these wonderful conversations. I love it, and you cannot have that in a Kingdom Hall.
No,
you can't. And I feel like it is so unloving to not listen, to prevent people from speaking what's on their mind.
right. Yeah.
You have doubts. Okay, that's fine. Ask questions. Yeah, that's fine. But you better accept the answers. You see on Reddit, it's like, can we ask these questions? Yeah, sure. You can ask a question.
As long as you accept the answer.
Damn right. You're damn right. As long as you accept the question. I'm sorry if I cursed. Sorry.
Yeah.
But as long as you accept the answer,
you can ask anything.
There's no more conversation after that. You cannot pursue it. And one of those answers can be, we don't know. Let's wait on Jehovah. And I do not accept that.
Yeah. I think what's the most disturbing is that if you question God or Jesus, they'll be less shocked than if you question the governing body. If you question the governing body, that's an unforgivable sin. You're out. You're gone. But if you question Jehovah, if you question Jesus, well, we all have our doubts, and we're all here to help you. But if you question the governing body, it's like, what did you read? Right? Like, where did you find that? Where did that come from?
Yeah, and how
Do you accept
did
it?
we get to that point? You know, were we always at that point? I'm 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 44. I'm 44 years old.
No,
Was
so
it
am I.
always like that? You know, what was it? Was it always the situation where you cannot question the leadership, but
Yeah.
you can question the Bible?
Yeah.
You know, and
Really.
that's what it comes down to. When
Because
you
yeah,
watch these morning worships, when you watch these governing body updates, when you watch all the videos, they quote Watchtower articles as if it were scripture.
well,
And it's
scriptures
just
don't have a
mind-boggling.
value there. We all think, oh, that the scriptures have a value. They don't have a value at all. And the moment I realized that, it was a moment when we were sitting at the table with all elders, and there was a problem in the congregation. And one elder pulls out the Bible and he reads from the Bible scriptures I didn't know even existed. And the scriptures describe the problem perfectly, like word for word what we had as a problem. That problem was in the Bible, and the solution was in the Bible. It was black and white. And I'm like, this guy's a genius. I don't even know how he found that, but the problem solved. And somebody raises their hand and said, oh, brother so and so, we no longer apply these scriptures to this situation. There was a Watchtower recently that clarified this, and we can't use those scriptures anymore. And he says, oh, I'm not aware of it. If that's the case, sorry. And I'm like,
And when,
who's the authority here? Watchtower or the Bible? Right? Like the one of the lights went on, right? In my head. It's like, the Bible is not the authority here at all. They come up with their own understandings, and then they cherry pick scriptures to back it up. And if you bring any scriptures that contradict what they believe in, they will attack you or shun you. That's the
yes,
pattern of behavior.
and that has real life impact for people that have devoted their entire lives. I've got a lot of friends that are, either Bethelite
Mhm.
or they are in missionary service or they are in disaster relief. And I was talking to a relative, I'll say this, a relative who is ranking in some means, and talking to him about the I'm trying to choose my words correctly. Bear with me. The topic came up about the new facility up in Wallkill. It's Wallkill, somewhere up in New York, where they're building a place for people to not commute, congregate, play tennis. There, Fishkill. There's some sort of new building project going on up there. And he went up to New York and helped build some of the facilities up there and stuff. And I asked him, like, about this new facility that was going to help out. He's like, oh yeah, that's nearby the retirement home for some of the long-term Bethelites. And I asked him, I said, at what point do you qualify for that? And, that, you spent 30 years in Bethel, right? With a lot of companies, not these days, not you used to have a pension or some sort of like parachute that if you spent so much time with them, you've got some sort of 401k or you've got some sort of retirement plan, but not with Bethel. you don't have anything because you've had this vow of poverty, and you haven't been putting anything, and they haven't been putting anything in Social Security. And so if you are ejected, you've got to work at least 10, I'm speaking from an American standpoint, at least 10 years before you qualify for minimum Social Security. And he was saying that's like, okay, yeah, that's nearby the retirement homes. Like, what? All right, how old do you have to be to qualify for that? It's like, well, that's why the new direction for COs is there's an age range. You can't be over a specific age for being a CO. And then after that, you get sent out into the quote unquote field. And the field is fend for yourself, basically. And it just makes no sense to me.
You're right. They set up a age limit, and mainly because they don't want to take care of these people. I forgot about that. You're right.
Exactly. And let's say that your entire career was being a CO. What is your experience? Public speaking, management after that. But what are you going to put in your resume? Because when you've been ejected, and you will be ejected, you're going to have to find a job for yourself.
What if you're a wife of a CO? Think about it.
That's a whole other topic and a whole other can of worms.
What is her experience? What if she needs to find a job? What if her husband gets sick and she has to take care of him? I've seen that happening too. When the CO, he gets sick, they have to come off service, and now she has to find a job, and she has to take care of him because he can't. And then she has zero experience. She didn't work for 30 years straight, and have zero savings and no family to support because they're all turning their backs on the family. And the Watchtower will say, Jehovah will take care of you. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And what that looks like, in my narrow experiences, I know a couple of COs in nearby congregations where, and this was when I say a long time ago, I would say over a decade. The congregation came together and built a house for that retired CO, and he's in his 80s now. And his means are cared for by people in the congregation. His house was built for. His house is on the property of another JW. His food is cared for by other JWs. It's just there's no parachute for these folks that after you've spent 20, 30 years out in the field, you're like, okay, you're done. You're going out in the field. That's the answer. And that's just, how is that loving?
Yeah.
That just seems so unloving to me.
Oh yeah, that's a different topic altogether. My friend, I'm gonna end. If somebody wants to continue the subject, we can put things in the comment. I have to go. Thank you very much for joining and sharing your story and your thoughts. Because it's always easier for me to have somebody on the show and share with us instead of
drop on.
Just me talking.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it very much.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, so to end our call today, I know we went a little bit off topic, but I think it was important to point out how vulnerable our minds are, how Jehovah's Witnesses, they rely so strongly on what the authority figures tell them that they can't function properly if they leave. They become rather super skeptical, or they believe another authority figure blindly. So my advice to you, if I could say that, is learn how to evaluate data, learn how to evaluate the information that is being thrown at you. There is so much information today. There are so many different misconceptions and theories that always check out the source. Always look a minimum of 2 sources, minimum of 2. If it's just one person saying this is what is the truth, and they coming up with different videos and they believes, and the chances are they're going to mislead you. But if you're looking at multiple of sources, then there's a greater chance you're going to find out what is real, what it's not. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.